Hi, I'm Roger and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to show you this load of free firewood that I got. You may remember that I did a couple videos about a month and a half ago or so of taking down a dangerous branch from a tree. Well, this is the wood from that job. To get all this free firewood, we had to get the branch down out of the tree first, and that was not an easy task because it was lodged very tightly and the ground was damp that day when I was trying to pull it with my truck, so the truck wasn't pulling really good like it would have been if it was dry. Then once the branch was on the ground, all the brush had to be cut off the branch and it had to be cut into firewood lengths. After that, the wood was loaded onto the trailer and the brush was piled up. You can see some of these larger pieces. I had to load those with the tractor because they were so big and heavy. After all the wood was gotten out of the way, I used the tractor to move the brush piles down into the woods. And in the midst of things, I took a pole saw and trimmed the tree up because when the branch broke out of the tree and lodged into the other tree, it broke some branches out of the good tree. So cleaned those up with the pole saw to make things look better. I'm going to estimate this load is probably about 3/4 of a cord since it is primarily thrown in the trailer. I could have purchased this amount of wood delivered right here to my place off of a triaxle truck and piled up for $60. Now I know in videos things look like they happen faster than what they do in real life, and a lot of times that's why I'll show my phone to show the time at what I started and when I ended. We had 14 man hours in this job. That's not including driving up the road, which it was less than a mile up the road, hooking up to the trailer, loading our gear up, and all that. So to get this $60 worth of wood, we had to take my truck and the dump trailer to haul the wood, the 4240 and the grapple to move the brush and load the larger rounds. Then we used the Expedition and the 4x6 enclosed trailer to haul all of our gear, like our chainsaws and chains in. And I think that's the majority of the tools that were used. If I would have cut this wood here, I wouldn't have needed the dump trailer, wouldn't have been running up and down the road multiple times because we did this in 2 evenings. We had 16 man hours in it, and this is $60 worth of wood that I could have purchased here. I'm going to estimate that it would have taken us 2 man hours to cut this wood here, which is going on the extreme high side of things. So I'll say we had 14 man hours in it to balance things out. 14 hours and $60 worth of wood. 60 divided by 14, you can see we made $4.29 an hour. So now you can see why I prefer to buy logs instead of going somewhere to cut firewood. Yes, there are easier ways to cut firewood, but even if you're going in the woods to cut firewood, it's still so time consuming versus having the logs delivered here and the equipment that you have to use, the danger factor for me and my dad, and the equipment like the tractor running through the woods. You're eventually going to mess a tire up, beat the tractor up running through branches and stuff. A tractor is not made for logging, really. I know people are going to laugh at that statement, but a tractor is not a piece of logging equipment or forestry equipment. Now this $4.28 an hour that we made, that's not factoring in the fuel that was burned in the tractor. We had brush to get rid of. I don't have brush to get rid of on the logs that I buy. And then when we're cutting out of the grapple, if you burn a tank of gas up in a chainsaw, you've got a pretty decent pile of wood. I think my dad went through like 4 tanks of gas cutting this, because when you're cutting on the ground, things just don't go as smoothly and you consume a lot more gas. So you can see that our operating costs were actually higher than what they would have been down here. This is just one example. Since this tree was lodged in another tree and in a yard and we had brush to deal with, the time it took to do this is far greater than if you go into the woods and actually cut a dead tree in the woods. But even going into the woods and cutting dead trees, if everything goes perfect, if the tree doesn't get lodged in another tree, that's always a big obstacle when you're in the woods, unless you're doing like a clear cutting job, is a tree's eventually going to get lodged in another tree, and then you're going to have to contend with that, so you're going to waste a bunch of time. But you can see why I prefer to buy my logs instead of going somewhere and cutting them, even if it is free. I have people all the time saying, I don't understand how you make money off of firewood if you're buying logs. Well, I don't understand how people really make any money cutting firewood if they don't buy logs, unless they have proper logging equipment. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it.